Hey guys, Loco here with Fnatic's top lane Bwipo. Bwipo, you guys just won Rift Rivals. You won against TSM. What did you think of NA teams overall as a whole in terms of how good they are, what kind of identity they have?
In general, it's hard to have a general consensus of the whole team. You just know, like, for example, Core JJ is considered really good by my bot lane in double lift, and then you get the biased opinions. But other than that, I'm also biased towards my role, right? So I'm going to focus on what I think, which team is good at playing around that role, and I'm going to hold those in a little bit of a higher regard in that sense. So with that in mind, I feel like none of the NA teams are great at playing around top lane. At least they didn't show it in Rift Rivals. Perhaps domestically they have more success. But with that in mind, I feel like TL was the only team that had a reliable game plan that they tried to execute, especially in the game against G2 as well. I saw the mid 2v2 was something that they definitely were trying to contest and got ahead there. So in that sense, I think they're all fine teams. Just individually, I feel like there's too many mistakes. At least there was this tournament, and I got to exploit those myself, and sometimes it felt like cheating. It was like, I'm laning against Licorice, and then suddenly there's a freeze. He has a freeze on me, and then he breaks it for no reason and lets me freeze when his jungler's on his side of the map. And it's like, I don't feel like this should be something that happens in an official match. At least, yeah, it felt a bit easy to lane. I think Broken Blade was the strongest laner at least. So actually Impact is also pretty good. So maybe I'm focusing Licorice a bit too much, but poor guy. Yeah, just all in all, I think NA's decent at the game. I think if they get their shit together and their players play individually a bit stronger, they're definitely fine.
So individually, what did you think of Impact, Broken Blade, Licorice compared to some of the EU competition you have?
Easier. No, I mean, I don't mean it to be toxic. It's such the truth, right? I feel like there's a lot more pressure playing against. You feel more pressure from the champion when you're laning against them in Europe. At least I do. I didn't really feel like, even when they had good matchups, they were really pressing and trying to get huge advantages on me. It was just like, I got 20 CS lead, and I'll slowly let that whittle down to 10 CS lead and then 0 eventually. So I felt like when they had a lead, they didn't press it as well as people in Europe do. And that made it a lot easier to lane against them.
So before flying over for Rift Rivals, you had an interview with one of the EU hosts, and you said there isn't much to learn from NA, or you had a hard time answering what is there to learn from NA. Did you learn anything?
Of course. Like, honestly, the reason why I feel like that was BM is because it's actually an in-depth question that you have to think about. Especially when you're being asked what does, like, NA in general. Like, most teams don't really have, like, NA as a whole doesn't have a thing they do better, right? It's just like, for example, Team Liquid was really good at X. TSM is good at Y. C9 is good at C or whatever. I don't know. I didn't do maths. But you get my point, right? So I was just like, what do all NA teams actually, like, unanimously do well? And I know it's going to be, the reason why I didn't say this is because it's going to be even more toxic without context. They're really good at grouping for mid priority. No joke. I feel like they miss the idea of going to side lanes after getting the mid priority, but actually being there on the wave and contesting it is something they're good at. But if I said that, I feel like there would be too many NA RAM memes, and that was worse than what I said, I think. But maybe I'm wrong.
Is there any player in particular from NA out of all the teams you scrimmed, you played against on stage that has impressed you the most?
Like across the board or top lane?
Anyone.
There's always someone that impresses the most, but how much? It's difficult to say. I don't feel like anyone stood out like, this guy was playing out of his mind, but I think Acadian played a pretty good game against us. So I didn't see the rest of his tournament, so I can't really say whether he had good games against other teams, but against us he had a good game. So other than the dive he did on me, that was really in. Other than that, I mean, he must have done something right to end up being that strong in the game. So definitely, sure, let's say that guy. It's hard to say because there's all the obvious answers like Core JJ and Double Lift and Impact, but they're just solid performers, at least in my eyes. I feel like Xmidi and Jensen are like always decent, but they're a little more wonky, if you will. So like, yeah, just in general, the Team Liquid lineup is also always to consider when you think about performers.
So let's go to your playstyle a bit. When I think Bwipo, I think Aatrox, I think aggressive, I think a lot of pressure, but also very easy to gank. Am I accurate in my assessment?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like when you are playing that aggressive and you're that far up, it is much harder to successfully dodge ganks and abuse the windows. But that is the strength of the playstyle as well as the weakness. Is you need to keep in mind what windows you have to pressure, right? And in a normal game of League of Legends, there will always be a point where the jungler has to go to the bottom side of the map, right? Just naturally speaking, if he's farming his jungle, right? Of course, in some cases, it takes a little longer than others, right? And that's where the skill comes in, is not just being tunneled on, okay, 3 minutes 25 until 4 minutes 45, he can be in my side of the map, and then I can start pressuring after. And it's finding those windows where you can exert the pressure without getting punished. So am I easier to gank than other top laners? Definitely. Am I easy to gank in the sense that I'm going to die to every single gank you throw at me? I personally don't think so, but I can see that some people feel that way.
So let's go back to LEC. Let's go back to start of this year when you guys lost Caps to G2 and you guys are rebuilding with Nemesis. You guys started so slowly. You guys struggled so much. What was that process like, going from World Finals to bottom of the table in LEC and restarting everything again?
Obviously, it was like a reality check, a bit of an aggressive word maybe, but definitely it wasn't the greatest moment. But for me, it was. We made it through Rotterdam. We got top 3, which again, like I feel like everyone felt like we should have been able to compete against OG a bit better. And then again, we all knew we weren't going to beat G2, but taking a game off them was something we were cocky enough to assume that we could. That said, it was a good reality check for the whole team. We all realized we need to get our shit together. We need to spend a little more time together. Just be more like a team. And that's what we've been doing since then, and results are showing.
So G2, everyone thinks of them as the best team in the world. You guys recently took a game off of them before flying over to NA for Rift Rivals. How far is G2 from Fnatic in your opinion? Or is it even or you guys even better? I mean, feel free to say whatever you want to say.
Honestly, it's entirely dependent on Caps' performance. I think that's a very reasonable thing to say. I think that he is a good performer and he will more often than not play a good game of League of Legends. But you have to remember, he is the livelihood of most teams he plays on because of how he plays, but as well as how much impact he has on the map when he is playing well, right? So you're forced to acknowledge him as a big deal on the map. And when he's not, especially in the game that we played, it was really obvious that it was harder for them to get in the groove playing with Wunder mid than with Caps mid, right? Because Wunder went mid for a while, and it was harder to get the ball rolling, and it felt like they couldn't really get any of their plays going on, which they usually do, and it made it a lot easier. That said, they're all mechanically talented players, which makes it that even if you have a gold lead in mid game, you need to make sure you're not taking bad fights, because if you take one bad fight, game's going to end. So that said, I think they're the best team, sure. But you can also exploit the fact that they have sometimes an inconsistent mid laner.
Any final words for North American fans watching, Fnatic fans watching, anyone watching?
Just thanks for watching the interview. I hope you enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview. I've been doing a lot of Rift Rival content, VOD reviews, interviews. I hope you guys been enjoying them. Friendly reminder, subscribing always helps, and also you can click on any of these videos to watch them. And lastly, thank you for Lowkey community for making all this happen. Bye.